A tenant in Maine, who I'm going to call dumb tenant number one, declined to pay her rent when it was due, ended up owing the landlord $750, and then was surprised when the landlord filed an eviction against her. But then she was even more surprised that after she paid the back rent that she owed the landlord, that the eviction was still on her record. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today. It's coming out of the state of Maine, and it has to do with a dumb tenant, okay? Somebody who logically should have realized that there are consequences for not paying your landlord or for the landlord having to file an eviction against you, okay? So basically this tenant ended up in arrears and had to be taken to eviction court by the landlord, where they agreed to a payment plan in order to pay the landlord back what they were owed so that they didn't lose their housing. Now, that worked out great, but the eviction still ended up on her record, and when she tried to find somewhere else to live, guess what? The other landlords saw that eviction filing and were like, you know what? I don't want to rent to this lady. So she's having a great bit of difficulty trying to find a place to live, and she's screaming, hey, it's not fair, it's not fair. Well, yes, absolutely it is fair, okay? The eviction background checks that we run on people, the eviction checks, they're for a reason. It's to weed out, for landlords who want to, it's to weed out tenants like you. And I know that you don't understand this, right? But when you have a history of not paying your landlord or not paying them on time or having eviction filings on your record, you might not be the best tenant. And that's a good reason for a lot of landlords not to want to rent to you. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. So first of all, do you believe that a tenant should be able to remove eviction filings from their record? Okay? I don't think that any information about a tenant should be removed from their history. You know, like we should be able to see their credit, we should be able to see their evictions, their criminal history, you know, all the places that are trying to force us to take tenants that are bad. I mean, the only thing they're doing is they're hurting our businesses, and they're making it harder for good tenants to find a place, because we're going to have to increase our criteria to make up for the fact that, you know, we're dealing with these bad tenants. And by criteria, I mean our rents and the selection criteria for those who move into our units. So it makes it harder for a good tenant who maybe just doesn't have the highest paying job to find an affordable place to live. But anyway, I'm going to get into this article, tell you what's going on in Maine. This article is coming from WABI5 TV, and it says, a Maine woman paid her back rent. Her record still says she was evicted. And part of the reason I bring this up is because there's been so much of a push lately for basically removing eviction records from people's histories, even after a very short period of time. And they say, oh, well, it's just a filing. It never was completed. Well, a filing is still telling somebody that, hey, this person did not pay their rent on time, and you know, they might not be the best tenant. But anyway, let me get into the article and we'll see what it says. When Jasmine Bellinger agreed to a pay plan to pay $750 in back rent, she had no idea how the decision would haunt her. It wasn't until 10 months later, while apartment hunting to distance herself from an ex-boyfriend she said had abused her, that she discovered an eviction on her record. She hadn't ever been ordered to move out, having paid her back rent on schedule. But it turned out that the 2023 deal she made in court with her landlord to help her avoid eviction created a paper record that made it look like she had been evicted. The black mark kept her from finding a new place to live. And absolutely, you know, this is exactly what the, us being able to see eviction records is for. When we see, hey, this person had a filing against them, okay? Now, like I said before, a filing is very telling. You won't see, like, I have been a renter for years of my life. Now, that's something a lot of people don't realize, okay? A lot of us landlords, we were renters too at one point in time, okay? I have rented from multiple different landlords, multiple different states, and you know what? Never, ever been evicted. Never had an eviction filed against me. Never missed a payment. Never paid late. And we're talking about years, multiple different landlords, multiple different properties, okay? So there you go. Now, the reason was because it was important to me, because I knew that it was necessary, okay? And I didn't want to be late because I knew that this sort of thing could happen. It'd be a black mark on my record, and I would be facing the same consequences she's facing. Now, the majority of renters are the same as me, okay? But her to scream, well, this isn't fair, this isn't fair. No, it is fair. This is the way the system works. It's kind of like when you are working with your car company, right? And you're making a car payment, right? If you have a repossession on your record, that looks bad. Your interest rates are going to be a lot higher. It's going to be a lot harder for you to get a loan to buy another car, okay? And the same if you don't pay your credit card bill on time or whatever, okay? It works the same for all these other places, yet they do not expect this for landlords. They think that, oh, well, you should be forced to rent to somebody who isn't credit worthy. That's dumb. Bellinger's landlord was the Bangor Public Housing Authority. See, it gets worse, okay? She was living in public housing, which operates apartments for low-income residents. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development strongly encourages public housing authorities to offer so-called repayment agreements to tenants who have fallen behind on rent in order to help them stay in their homes. It recommends that authorities reach these deals before cases reach eviction court. But housing authorities have flexibility as to how to design and enforce such agreements. And the way these second chance opportunities are executed in some parts of Maine, verbally in eviction courts with little judicial oversight, has come back to harm even tenants who meet every term of their deals. Now, that's something I didn't realize before, okay? That this lady's living in the public housing, okay? Her rents are rock bottom, ultra low. She still didn't pay on time, and now she's still whining that she has this eviction on her record. Shut up, okay? You brought this upon yourself. I understand things happen, but you have to face the consequences of these actions, and we cannot remove this eviction rate. If you couldn't pay the public housing authority this highly subsidized, very low rent, how am I, as a regular landlord who's charging market rates, how am I supposed to be expected to rent to you? I can't trust you. That's why it's important, don't sit here and be like, oh, I can't find a place to live now. Jesus, you have to think about it. And these laws that make it so that I can't see evictions on somebody's record, or the evictions just drop off, they're dumb laws. I think that it should be up to the individual discretion of the landlord. There's plenty of landlords out there who will rent to people with evictions on their records, but it should be our choice. Just like, the choice to take a Section 8 voucher. It shouldn't be forced down our throats. That's because judges here don't pause eviction cases even when tenants and housing authorities reach agreements. In fact, those judges often grant landlords possession of properties at the time the repayment deals are made, expediting the process of kicking out tenants who violate the agreements. Some states have taken steps to prevent this, requiring landlords to return to court to evict tenants who don't fulfill the terms of their repayment plans. Housing authorities also could choose to pause or close eviction cases if repayment agreements are made in court, but they rarely do so in Maine, said Erica Viazzi, an attorney with Pine Tree Legal Assistance, a legal aid group based in Portland that represents low-income tenants throughout the state. So, the article, it kind of goes more into, what different housing authorities, how they respond to the laws. And when it starts talking about this sort of stuff, I think to myself, okay, we have a group of people, right? They're very low income tenants, right? They're being highly subsidized by the government. They're living in public housing. They have this great deal where they're getting something at an extremely discounted price, and they still aren't happy. They want more. And this is part of my issue with socialism in general, okay? No matter how much you give to somebody, they're going to be complaining that it isn't good enough for them. And that's exactly what this lady is doing. Oh, we need more handouts. You should be nicer to us. You shouldn't have this eviction on my record. You need to be doing it. Like, listen, lady, you're only paying $100 a month, and you couldn't even make that payment on time. And we still didn't kick you out of this place. and yet you complain. Shut up. Anyway, tell me what you think of this whole situation. I want you to put a comment in the comment section down below and let me know what you think.